Now let's talk about Brazil's neighbor, Argentina. It's a country in crisis. Inflation is nearing 200%. Foreign reserves are depleting fast. Simply put, Argentina's economy is sick. So the people of Argentina have hired a new doctor, Javier Milei, their new president. He believes in shock therapy. No nudges or prods, only big bang moves. One such move was announced on Tuesday. Milei is trimming down Argentina's government. Basically, he's firing public officials. More than 5,000 of them are said to be at risk. Here's how it works. A lot of public officials work on a contract basis in Argentina. Some of those contracts expire on the 31st of December, at the end of this year. Milei says he won't extend them. He won't extend those contracts. He issued a special decree on Tuesday. First, only workers hired in 2023 will be fired, but gradually those hired before this year will also be scrutinized. There are some exceptions though, like senior officials. They're safe. So are workers hired under legal quotas, for example, specially abled workers. Now, what is the idea behind this move? Simple, to save money. Argentina's government employs around 3.5 million people. That's 7.7% of their population employed by the government. Their salaries take up more than 2% of the GDP. But Milei says that is not acceptable. His plan is to sell off state-owned companies, to privatize them. So these layoffs are a precursor to that. Now, I know you have questions like, can governments really lay off workers? Have they done it before? Well, surprisingly, the answer is yes. Greece fired around 150,000 workers, public officials, 150,000. This was from 2010 to 2015. It was a condition imposed on them by lenders. If you want the money, cut the job. So that's what they did. Even the United States laid off workers. After the 2008 recession, the US government downsized. Around 750,000 jobs disappeared in 5 years, 750,000, all public officials. Argentina's neighbor Brazil is also on this list. In 2016, Brazil's economy was under pressure, so the government fired some 4,600 workers, again, all public officials. You may have noticed a trend in this list. Layoffs always follow a crisis. They're part of austerity measures, but they do raise questions about the larger trend, that of governments and jobs. It's a big deal here in India. A government job is like the holy grail. Millions of candidates often compete for a few hundred seats. It's a long shot, but people take it. So how many workers does the Indian government employ? And how does it compare to other countries? Around 20 million Indians work in government sectors. That's around 2.2% of the workforce, 20 million people. The Chinese government employs around 39 million people, which is 4.6% of their workforce. In the US, the rate is almost 7%. In the UK, 17.5%. And in Europe, 18% is the average. 18% of the workforce is employed by the government. Nordic countries have surprisingly high rates. It's around 30% in Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. So if you pick 3 workers, one of them, 1 out of 3, works in the government in these countries. Of course, this raises questions. Should governments be considered a source of jobs? Should they keep adding more workers? I'm afraid it's not a yes or no question. It depends on a lot of factors, like, can your country afford it? Nordic nations have impressive per capita incomes. They also have low public debt, so clearly they can afford it. But not every country likes a big government. Many Western leaders have built careers out of opposing it. Take a look at this.
And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
People feel that they count for less and less. The state drains society not only of its wealth, but of initiative, of energy, the will to improve and innovate, as well as to preserve what is best.
Some say we need more of your money to expand the size and scope of government, or they would argue more of your money to balance the budget. Then there are those of me, like me in Washington, who say there's ample money in Washington to meet priorities, and the more money you have in your pocket, the better off the economy is.
So what should India do? Ideally, somewhere in the middle, We need the private sector to take the lead. India has some 500 million workers. It's impossible for the government to employ all of them, 500 million people, but that does not mean public officials are redundant. You need them to act as enablers, to attract investments, to offer services to people, and to expeditiously clear projects. If not, they're a burden. So you can't see public sector jobs as the answer to the problem. They can help the economy, but not cure it.